Hello everybody. In today's video, I'm going to show you guys a super incredibly powerful tool in Photoshop. Now you definitely can use this tool on all of your photos, but I'm not saying that you should. There's definitely a lot of Photoshop trickery going into photos these days, and this is one of the best tools if you want to go ahead and warp your images and literally move mountains, move lakes, move trees, whatever you want to move. It is so easy to do it with this tool, and I have no doubt that you can create some really awesome compositions that you didn't quite get in the field by using this tool. You can make your mountains look taller, and you can just make your scenes overall look better. This isn't something that I use very often, but it is something that every once in a while, it is just so helpful. And for those of you guys that aren't photo purists and you don't care as much about getting the shot in camera, you are going to love this tool. This tool is going to be the Liquify tool. Let's go ahead and jump right over to Photoshop, and we'll get right in there talking about the Liquify tool and moving mountains. All right, so we've got our photo open here in Photoshop. Now, the first thing that I like to do is figure out exactly what I want to do with this image before I tackle it. So the things that I dislike about this image are these mountains are so high up on the right, and it's just not a great composition. Also, the mountain is very small compared to all of the rock scree, and I know it's technically all part of the same thing, but this is, I would describe as more of the mountain per se, with this hard like granite or whatever rock this is, as opposed to this scree field. So I want to reduce the scree field as well, and then maybe I'll shape out the lake as well. So know what you're going to do, and then you can go ahead and make some adjustments. So the first thing I want to do is uncheck this lock over here. Then I want to click and drag this down to this box right here, which will make a new layer. Now you can call this the Liquify layer, and that is a tool that we're going to be using. So to find Liquify, you're going to go up to Filter. You're going to go down to Liquify, and you're going to click that. Now, it may take a second to load out, and the speed of how fast this is going to adjust when you edit it highly depends on the computer that you are working on. On mine, it works pretty well, but on some slower, older computers, it may not work quite as well. First thing I like to do is hit Command minus a few times to just zoom out. Usually to about right there is good, just so I have some space to work with. Now we've got tons of different options. The first thing I want you to do is to close all of these except for the brush tool options. That is the only one that we need to be open. And now you can see we've got tools on the left side. There's a lot of different tools over here to do a lot of different things, but there's a few ones that we like to use specifically for landscape photography. And most of those lie over here: the pucker, the bloat, and the push left tool. The push left tool allows you to push more directions than left. I don't know why they called it that, but I don't make the rules here. So first thing that we can do is actually use this push left tool. Now the way that it works, when you click, if you drag down, it pushes right. Dragging up pushes left, dragging left pushes down, and dragging right pushes up. Super confusing. Don't worry about remembering that. Just try it and then figure out when you move which direction you want to move things. So first things first, we can make our brush size smaller. So I like to use these settings: a density of about 50 and a pressure of about 50. And then we can adjust the size of the brush. You can see we can make it smaller or larger. Now, the other thing to keep in mind about this tool is that it does destruct the image pretty quickly. So you don't want to do anything crazy. I don't want this to be the next Mount Everest. I want it to stay just a little bit taller than it is and just reduce the center spot a little bit. So don't go too crazy with this. But what we can do here is bring the brush size a little bit bigger. I like to work with a brush about this large. Now, depending on the size of your image, the size of the brush will look larger or smaller on the canvas. So just adjust your brush size till it's about this large compared to the image. First thing we're going to do is actually use the pucker tool, and I'm going to click and drag. Now you can see when I do that, it makes this area smaller. I'm just clicking and holding. It makes this area smaller, which is something that we wanted to do. Now you can see when I preview it, we've now made this scree field a lot smaller, which is something that we wanted to do at the beginning. And you can use this in more ways than one. This also, essentially by making things smaller, makes it look like things are further away. So you can use this to make things look like they're further away. And you can combine this with some of the other tools. So that's looking pretty good. Let's go ahead and use the push tool. And I just want to, you can push Command Z, by the way, to undo. So I've always got my two fingers on the keyboard here. But we can push this down a little bit. And then we can push this up to kind of just scrunch that area just a little bit. And then we can also push our mountain up, and we don't want to do it too much because, as you can see, it can get out of hand pretty quickly. and look pretty unrealistic. That's looking pretty good to me right now. We can also use this tool here, which is called the Bloat Tool, and that essentially does the opposite of what the Pucker Tool does. This just makes things look larger. So I can do that. Now, the last tool I like to use here is this tool, which is called the Forward Warp Tool. It just allows you to push stuff around. So you can push things outside the frame and you can bring things down. It kind of is just the tool that lets you pull stuff around to exactly where you would want it. And again, you can adjust the size of the brush, but this is the size brush that I like to work with. You can make it larger if you want to do something big all at once. And like I said, it's important that you don't overuse this, because if I do a bunch of turns, obviously you can see how quickly that gets messed up. So use these clicks very, very carefully and don't use them very fast. Just do little adjustments at a time. We can make the lake a little larger by just doing this. We can kick these rocks out of the scene. There's a wide variety of things that we can do here just by clicking around. And you can see if you're working with trees, you don't want to bend the trees because obviously trees don't grow like that. So be careful when you're working with things like that, like trees that would obviously not look realistic. I'm going to go back to the pucker tool here, and I'm just going to pucker over here. If you want to make things go faster, you can adjust the pressure or the density or the rate. But I find that with the settings that I mentioned at the beginning, this is about as fast as I like to go. Bring this back out a little bit, and I'm just clicking and holding the mouse here. About in there is looking good. I can grab this tool again, warp this back out to the side, and you can do a bunch of other things. So when we preview this now, you can see we've made a huge difference. The mountain is huge. The scree field is not so huge anymore. So we've added a lot of interest to our scene there. You could even go over here and make this a little less tall so that way your main subject there in the middle of your frame does not... You want this subject in the center to be the tallest, at least I do in this photo. So I can bring this over. You can see I've pushed all that down. We can even bring this back out. We can use our bloat tool again, and the bloat tool does work in pretty quickly. So we might just want to do this and bring it up. All right, so I mean, you see, the more we work with it, the more unrealistic it's going to look. If you're feeling like the rock face is too aggressive now, I could go in and just pucker it a little bit, just to bring that rock face back down to something more reasonable. And now you can make it tall and stout. So you can see in just probably that was about 10 minutes or less, I've made these adjustments and really made this look a lot better, a lot more interesting composition in my opinion. You can hit OK and let it load out here. But like I mentioned before, with great power comes great responsibility. So be careful when you're using this. You don't want to overdo it. I mean, even this might look a little unrealistic. It's up to your personal eye. Let me know what you guys think. I'd probably spend a little bit more time doing this if I was doing this for real, but just showing you guys this tutorial, that is kind of the ins and out of how to use the Liquify tool to move, literally to move mountains in Photoshop. So for those of you guys that are watching this that have used the warp tool before, you might be asking yourself, why wouldn't I just use the warp tool? Now this Liquify tool is so much better. It does a lot more things and it does it a lot quicker and easier than the warp tool does. The warp tool is great for little warping, but this Liquify tool is really great if you do not care about totally changing the photo and really moving things around to create a compelling composition. This is the tool you want to go for. Like I said, with great power comes great responsibility, so don't abuse this tool. If someone asks you if you warped a photo, just tell them that you did. Don't try and lie about it and make people think that the mountain is a lot taller than it really is. Just be honest. That's all that I ask. I don't care if you want to warp your images. I rarely use this tool on my images, but when I do, I'm more than happy to tell someone that I did, just so they don't have an unrealistic expectation. Thank you guys so much for checking out this week's video. Feel free to leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you guys use this tool and if you liked it. And we will see you guys next weekend. Bye-bye.